Okay, take one. One take Jake. The Hadal is an art piece by Angelo Musco depicting hundreds of human bodies swirling around the deepest, blackest part of the ocean, not unlike a school of fish. Although it may look painted, every individual body is actually a photograph of a real person. Upon first viewing of this piece, I was instantly struck with a morbid fascination. There is clearly an immense amount of effort and artistry on display to appreciate, and simultaneously I felt myself, on some level, wanting to avert my eyes as it looked almost frightening, evil. Hundreds of damned souls eternally drifting deeper into an infinite black hell of torment and suffering. I knew immediately after seeing it that it would stay with me, and it has. For better or worse. This same phenomenon, though ramped up to 11 in every respect, occurred when I watched the 2018 film Hereditary by Ari Aster. I say this with no degree of exaggeration or hyperbole. This is the best movie I have ever seen. It is my favorite movie, and I may never go out of my way to watch it again in my entire life. Hereditary is a movie I watched earlier this year, and aside from the popularity of its name and the stellar reputation that comes with it, I didn't know what I was expecting prior to watching. The experience which followed not only had me enthralled from start to finish with feelings of dread, paranoia, despair, and hopelessness, it began a short-lived but intense obsession with the movie that was both voluntary and psychologically involuntary. I was obsessed with the sheer directorial mastery on display by Ari Aster, consuming reviews, scene analyses, commentary, and basically anything I could get my hands on. At the same time my artistic interest with this movie grew to a fever pitch, I began to regularly experience nightmares with themes of demonic possession, family strife, and the systematic destruction of the human spirit, all commonplace ideas within the movie. In fact, these nightmares were so intense I grew fearful of the dark after waking and could not find it in me to go back to sleep. Some may posit this as merely juvenile, scaredy-cat behavior, and perhaps they're right, but as my initial interest with the movie began to wane, I soon began to grow very interested with my reaction to it as well. What was happening? Something I knew full well to be fiction, and which brought me a lot of joy to watch and discover more about, was causing real and tangible distress in my actual life. The power of this movie fascinated me endlessly, which itself dramatically increased my appreciation for the art form and began an escapade of movie viewings that would have never taken place otherwise. This movie inspired me to engage with the medium in a way I never have before in my life. It has led me to discover movies I love, movies I hate, and has opened the door for me to encounter movies that capture the full gamut of human emotion and the near infinite subsections therein. Not only that, it has led me to discover some of the very best content creators right here on YouTube, which in turn supply me with new and interesting perspectives about art and the artists who make it. For example, the Kino Corner, Deep Focus Lens, and Rob Ager of Collective Learning, to name only a few, are some of the most talented creators on the platform, in my opinion. Martin Scorsese is famous, or infamous, for his quotes about Marvel movies, claiming they are more akin to theme park rides than cinema. When he was able to later expound on his remarks in a New York Times article, one of the most scathing but resonating excerpts reads thus: "Many of the elements that define cinema as I know it are there in Marvel pictures. What's not there is revelation, mystery, or genuine emotional danger. Nothing is at risk. The pictures are made to satisfy a specific set of demands, and they are designed as variations on a finite number of themes. They are sequels in name, but they are remakes in spirit, and everything in them is officially sanctioned because it can't really be any other way. That's the nature of modern film franchises: market researched, audience tested, vetted, modified, re-vetted, and re-modified until they're ready for consumption. Another way of putting it would be that they are everything that the films of Paul Thomas Anderson, Claire Denis, or Spike Lee, or Ari Aster, or Kathleen Bigelow, or Wes Anderson are not. When I watch a movie by any of these filmmakers, I know I'm going to see something absolutely new and be taken to unexpected and maybe even unnameable areas of experience. My sense of what is possible in telling stories with moving images and sounds is going to be expanded. I find myself basically agreeing with Scorsese's sentiments in the article, and using the theme park analogy going forward, I want to hone in on what I think is an important takeaway. I think even the most cynical among us can agree theme park rides have their place in society, and every now and again they offer a certain charm not usually captured by the water park or cinema or five-star restaurant. A world Scorsese and I are genuinely worried about is not one where theme park rides are commonplace or even popular pastimes, but one where the entertainment environment itself is transmogrified into a theme park all its own. One that encompasses restaurants and water parks, and where the few true artistic expressions of passion and creativity are but the ever-elusive stuffed bunnies and bears on the other end of a rigged carnival game. And this is where the analogy breaks down somewhat, but the basic gestalt couldn't be clearer. The more metaphorical space these movies take up on the big screen, the worse the cinematic environment in society becomes, not only for passionate creatives, but I would argue for general audiences as well. I think back to how transformative and special watching Hereditary was for me in virtually every way I can think of, even in some ways spawning this video. How watching it meant more to me than any Marvel movie, and indeed every Marvel movie, I've seen in the past decade. I never think about any Marvel movie I've ever watched after I'm done viewing it, and yet to this day, I still occasionally get nightmares from Hereditary. And as I'm fast transforming into an insufferable film bro, I find myself developing a strange kinship with every person on Twitter who has genuine seething hatred and disgust bubble up inside of them watching someone call the newest Marvel movie peak cinema. In closing, I value a Musco's Hadal or Aster's Hereditary far more than I could ever value the entire Marvel project as a whole. I would rather a piece of art give me night terrors for a month than forget about it the same day. Before I set out to write one of these videos, I like to start with a big picture, base prompt or description of my feelings on the subject to get me going, and figured I'd end this video with the one I wrote for this script. Hereditary is a movie that inspired such great and terrible feelings of dread, paranoia, and fear in me that, even though it has impressed upon me real and tangible discomfort in my life after viewing, it speaks not only to the sheer masterful display of filmmaking on the director's part, nor the acting on the actor's parts, but to the sheer impassable gulf between it and current Marvel as a project. Marvel movies don't aim to inspire or energize us with new and exciting emotions. They exist to formulaically make money in a soulless attempt to perpetually keep its audience of man-children in a state of ignorance regarding the limits of what film is capable of. They are not film. They are carnival rides and arcade games designed to wring as many quarters from you as humanly possible while doing just enough to ensure they remain a notch above terrible. While Naruto and Attack on Titan suffer from technical problems regarding dialogue and narrative structure, Marvel's greater sin is lacking soul and passion.